In this edition of Vinyl Haul, I've got some compilations, I've got some live material, I've got a bunch of new releases, as well as a couple oddball records, one of which could definitely be construed as a novelty record from a fairly big classic label. So, you know what you should do? You should stick around. I think it would behoove you to do so. That's right, behoove. So fancy. First up is a live album version of an original 1984 VHS home video release from British metal band Venom. This is The Seventh Date of Hell, live at Hammersmith Odeon, released for the first time on vinyl in 2020 by Back on Black. And yes, I do have the original VHS. I've had it since I was a kid back in the mid-1980s. This was my exposure to Venom in a lot of ways. Right after I bought black metal, of course. I played this tape over and over again. This, of course, was the only way I was going to get to see Venom live in the 1980s. They weren't playing Massachusetts very much. They probably were banned in Boston, like many other bands back then. But I played this tape over and over again. As a big Venom fan, I really wanted to see them badly. I think this was the only way I would probably ever get to see them. At least I felt that way back when I was a teenager. Great tape. You can tell that the artwork mirrors the tape, both front and back as well. The art design there is very, very similar. Pretty cool album overall. The sound is how you would expect it. It does mirror the tape quite a bit. Also, Venom's a bit messy live. Everyone kind of knows that. They make a lot of mistakes. Mantis admits that on this recording. In fact, he says something to the effect of, if you want to listen to Venom, you should go home and listen to your records on your turntable, because what you're going to get here is insanity and chaos and all of that stuff. So, of course, that's Venom. It's what you're going to get. Final variant for this one is Translucent Red. Pretty nice, actually. You got the track listings there. Some of the artwork from the cover there. Also comes with the usual Back on Black promotional insert. Bunch of their releases here. And if you don't like to read, there are pictures of the albums on the back. There you go. What's really cool about this record, though, is the poster that comes with it. Fairly big poster. I am completely in love with this. I think I might need to hang this thing up, because it is amazing. Another thing is the gatefold. The gatefold has a pretty cool write-up here from John Tucker. John Tucker is the author of Neat and Tidy, The History of Neat Records. That was the label that Venom was on. A bunch of other Nawabum bands. He does a pretty good write-up here of the history of the band up to this point, as well as some quotes from the band regarding their experiences with the Hammersmith Odeon show, and a little bit of the aftermath, because as we know, Venom soon after wasn't doing so well, the first version of Venom, so there's that. Favorites, of course, Countess Bathory is my very favorite live song on this album. I love Seven Gates of Hell a lot as well. And of course, Warhead. Warhead is amazing. There are some differences in the VHS I should probably point out. First of all, the song Anomone Satanas is on here, but for some reason it's missing. It should be between Don't Burn the Witch and Welcome to Hell. It is on the tape listed here, though, which is pretty interesting. Also, Bloodlust ends the video tape, but is not on the vinyl. And I just don't think there was any room for it. It would have been cool if there was. Speaking of which, I really would have preferred a double record set, because, I mean, this is only an hour of the show, and this is one track less than that. So maybe the whole show would have been cool. I know the set list had songs like In League with Satan and Black Metal and Witching Hour, you know, all the classics. So maybe Back on Black could have gone that route instead, but you get this, it's all right. I'm still happy with it. So no music videos per se from this album, though, if you want to see the entire show. Many people have ripped it and put it on YouTube, so it's out there if you want to see it. Anyways, very cool album. I do have some deep nostalgia for this recording, but I think in addition to that, and the fact that I will collect anything 80s Venom on a dime, it's still a good album. It's still a good live performance. I think it represents the band really, really well, and I would definitely recommend it. Next is the fourth studio album from American horror metal band The Lion's Daughter. This is Skin Show, released in 2021 by Season of Mist. So this band before was thought more to be a sort of sludge metal outfit, but since they've adopted more horror atmospherics and some synth elements, they're still sludgy at times, not so much blackened anymore. Also, the vocals are kind of yelly death metal style. I mean, there is metal here, I need to point that out, but pretty cool. A couple things I'm hearing more in the horror atmospherics. I'm definitely hearing some John Carpenter soundtrack stuff going on. Hearing a little bit of Goblin as well, though more for the synth elements than the prog elements in their music, but very cinematic for sure. I especially enjoyed some of the musical shifts that happen in some of the tracks. Nothing really stagnates on this album. You know, you're hearing a part of the track, and then it goes somewhere even more interesting. And I really dig that. Keeps my attention throughout this album. Vinyl variant for this one is white. In fact, it's right here. Got the artwork there. Got some other artwork there. Also, you get a little bit of an ad, a little merch form for Season of Mist and their print-on-demand t-shirts. Some classic bands, some not-so-classic bands. Mostly classic, though. There you go. Also, an insert with some lyrics and a picture. Playing peekaboo. Why not? That's horror. Also comes in a gatefold jacket here with a really nice image. I like when gatefolds have interesting images rather than just lyrics all over them, but we also know that about me. Favorites, got a few. Definitely the opening track, Become the Night. I would recommend that one the most. It's a great track. Also Werewolf Hospital and All Hell Is Mine. There is a music video for the song Curtains. You should probably check that out. It's pretty great. It's at the official Season of Mist YouTube channel. And they even spot varnished the little baby skull. I don't know if you can see that very well, but yeah, nice touch. So yeah, it's a weird little record. I think some of the more conservative metal fans might pass on this, but if you're into a little bit of experimentation, if you dig synth-laden horror soundtracks, if you like a little bit of heavy atmosphere mixed with some aggression, especially metal aggression, I think you'll dig Skin Show. I definitely dig it. Next up is the 5th studio album from Swedish stoner doom metal band Monolord. This is Your Time to Shine, released in 2021 by Relapse Records. So we definitely have some stoner doom to an extent going on here. We've also got some atmospheric and mellow moments. If you're looking for like consistently heavy stoner doom, this might not be your release. It definitely moves between mellow and somewhat heavy, but definitely doomy. Way more doom than stoner for sure. There's also some psych rock going on in this album, in addition to a whole lot of Black Sabbath worship. I know that happens a great deal in the stoner doom subgenre, but I feel like this band utilizes that Sabbath worship in an interesting way. I don't think they're merely a copycat band, so I kind of dig that. This is also a very darker record for Monolord. I don't know if the cover necessarily shows that. It's a dead rabbit with flowers. So it's a nice contrasted image. I kind of like that because you have death, but you have beauty as well. Again, the album has some mellow moments and some heavy moments, so maybe that's another contrast. Maybe the cover's trying to tell you a little bit of that. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But that's kind of a little bit of what I get from this cover, and definitely from this album. So it is possible for some metal fans to not dig the mellow moments on this album. I like them to the extent that they break things up quite a bit. A lot of the tracks on this album are really long, and there is a little bit of repetition. I think that repetitiveness would go way too long if they don't change it up, or didn't change it up. So I like that they did that. Pretty cool. The vinyl variant is Kelly Green. And there are no press numbers for this one. All the other variants for this record, I know there are 3 or 4 or so, all have number of copies listed. This one doesn't, and I'm kind of wondering if this is the unspecified number of copies. You know, usually it's black, but maybe it's Kelly Green this time. So this might be the wide release, is basically what I'm saying. We also have an insert with lyrics and a picture of the band, some credits as well. It's funny, every time I see an image of this band, they always seem to be wearing these same 3 shirts. I don't know if it's just the pictures I happen to be seeing, but it's kind of funny. Unfuck everything is usually the shirt I see. But pretty fun. Also, I should go through some favorites. I have 2 favorites on this one. I really like I'll Be Damned, as well as The Siren of Yersinia. Especially I'll Be Damned. I think that's my favorite. You should probably go to that track first. There is a music video for The Weary, and there is an audio track for I'll Be Damned. Both of those can be found at the Relapse Records YouTube channel. You should check those out. Definitely. So Monolord seem to have matured a little bit since their previous releases. This record does drone on a little bit, admittedly, but I still dig it. I still find I'm listening to it, so yeah, check it out. Next is a compilation album of obscure metal bands. This is Scrap Metal Volume 1, released in 2021 by Riding Easy Records. First off, we have to talk about this cover right away. It was definitely a bit of a draw for me, and I think a lot of other metal fans probably remember as teenagers, and maybe not so much teenagers, taking pictures just like this. You're drunk, you got a camera, you do it. Definitely pictures from my younger years look just like this. Of course, also some of my current YouTube thumbnails look like this as well, but that might be another story entirely. So imagine some of the more obscure Nawabum bands mixed with some bad attempts at 80s metal acts, bigger acts that is, and maybe some heavy garage band vibes, pretty much is the gist of this record. The influences are there, of course. Some of the bands pull some Maiden riffage, a little bit of early Metallica here and there. I'm hearing some Kiss song structures and a couple of these, even some punk influence. So yeah, I mean, different bands, different sounds, but that's the vibe I'm getting overall from this record. I'm also thinking that some of these bands could have been Metal Massacre rejects. Think of some of the lesser loved bands on the Metal Massacre compilation album, especially the early albums, and you can hear that kind of vibe as well. I have to read part of the blurb on the back of this. There's a write-up of every single band, but there's also a description here that's worth reading. The recordings may be low budget, but the inspiration and talent is immutable. Not only are the amps turned up to 11, the boyish sexual innuendo is cranked to 69. You can hear the convergence of influences, Nawabum, thrash, glam metal, doom, etc., colliding at once as the era birthed a wellspring of subgenres. We've collected the best of the best for you here. You can rest easy. All these tracks are licensed legitimately, and every one of the artists gets paid, which is really cool. I do want to talk about some favorites on here. I really like Air Raid with 69 and a 55. Amazing title. Definitely Kiss influence there. Also, we have Czar with Iron Curtain. My favorite is probably The Beast with Enemy Ace. I would check that track out first. There is some really bad drumming on a few of these songs. Most notably, Don Capo with Steel City Metal. Bad fills, bad timekeeping. You're going to hear that on more than one track. I mean, these are definitely sort of garage band style recordings on some level. Some of these, though, actually do sound like they were in a studio, though, which is pretty interesting. Vinyl variant here is Classic Black, limited to 500 copies. There we go. I like that. I should mention one thing that I found. It's a little bit of a manufacturer's defect in my copy. It might not be in yours. Maybe it is. The etching of the runout text, whatever the stylus is that puts that etching in, skittered a little bit and almost got into the song. It ends shy of the edge of the runout. It just has these little dimples, like it just skittered off. And yeah, that bugged me a little bit, but thankfully it isn't in the music. So there you go. So keep an eye out for that just in case. I mean, maybe your copy will have it go way too much in and you might have to return it. So, definitely take a look at this thing. Also, I should say that if you're interested in hearing any of these tracks, they are available on the Riding Easy YouTube channel. I think every single track can be streamed, so you should definitely check them out. So as bad as some of these songs might be, I think you might also find that they are complete earworms. I find myself singing along to a whole lot of these tracks, especially the choruses. I definitely feel like a lot of this falls in that they're so bad, they're almost good camp. And maybe that's much the point. Maybe Riding Easy is kind of banking on that a little bit. Regardless, I should also mention Riding Easy Records has a series out called Brown Acid. It's a lot of 60s and 70s garage bands, kind of proto-metal at times. I almost bought into that series, but when this came out, this is a lot more up my alley. I think metal fans would dig this a lot more. And I'm hoping they do future releases. I hope there's a Volume 2 and a Volume 3 and a Volume 4 because I'm a little bit hooked on this. So yeah, you should check this out. Fun stuff. Next up is the 23rd studio album from British metal veteran Saxon. This is Carpe Diem, released in 2022 by Silver Lining Music. So I really want to start right away with the opening track here. This is Carpe Diem Seize the Day. I don't really feel like it's a good opening track. It's a good song, but I just wouldn't have opened the record with it. Rather, the next song, Age of Steam, much better opener. I think it's a stronger record, a stronger song rather, and they really should have led with that. Also, if we're going to get a little bit technical here, I do have to discuss the production a little bit. It is produced by Andy Sneap, and what I'm hearing in the production is that it's starting to sound a little bit like a lot of the other records he's done of modern note, some of the modern Judas Priest albums, as well as Accept albums. Again, the songwriting and the vocals here, what set it apart. I mean, Saxon is still Saxon, but again, I think the mix and the production, all of that stuff, just sounds a bit Andy Sneapish. And maybe that's being picky, but I think that production likens this album a little bit too much to some of those other offerings from those other bands. There's a bit of compression, there's a bit of stripped down sensibility to the production. It sounds like an Andy Sneap record. So I don't know, maybe get another producer next time to sort of differentiate yourself a little bit more from those other bands. I don't know, but maybe that's just being picky. But this isn't all doom and gloom. There's still a lot to enjoy on this record. I think Biff's vocals are incredibly strong. I think his voice has held up over the decades. It's still there. I really love the soloing and the riffs in general on this album. I think guitars are a real strong suit on this record. And I would say that unlike another veteran Nawabum band of note, Saxon had the decency to keep this album succinct and free of bloat, which I like. 44 minutes long, and they do a lot with that 44 minutes, so yeah, good on them. The final variant for this one is blue. This is a European variant. I know it also came in green, and also came in black. Also comes with an insert, one-sided insert, with this lovely graphic. Also, an inner sleeve with full lyrics, and credits, and the band, and all of that. Also, we have picture of the band in the gatefold. Like all of us, they're getting older too. Favorites, quite a few. At least a few, I should say. I definitely love Age of Steam. I think that's my very favorite song on this album. It's pretty great. I also dig Supernova quite a bit. Probably my second favorite song. And also Living on the Limit. There are music videos here for Carpe Diem Seize the Day. There's another one for The Pilgrimage and one for Remember the Fallen. You should check those out at the Planet Saxon YouTube channel. So yeah, it's Saxon, and they do fall back on their established formula a bit on this, though with some modern touches. Not entirely sure that the younger set or listeners with more modern expectations for metal bands are going to get into this. Maybe so, maybe not. If you're already a Saxon fan, it's likely that you're going to like at least most of this, if not all of this. I can't tell you what you're going to like, but I get that. So overall, I dig the album enough. I feel there is some strong material on here. I think there are a few filler tracks. I did like their previous album a bit more. That was Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt was heavier and darker overall. I think that just appealed to me a little bit more. Still like this album. I'll still be listening to it from time to time when the mood strikes. So yeah, there you go. Next is the third studio album from Danish death metal band Baest. This is Necrosapiens, released in 2021 by Century Media Records. And yes, it is pronounced Baest. I know a lot of people have had issues with how to pronounce this band name. I did see an interview with them recently, and two of the members pronounced it as Baest. So I'm going with that. So a lot of mid-paced death metal here, though I wouldn't misconstrue that as lack of heaviness. There's plenty of that here. It's a lot of cool harmonizing leads and some pummeling grooves. Also what's interesting is the double bass drumming, the drums in general on this one. He can play that fast-paced drumming, both with the speedy riffs at times, but also some of the more mid-pace, the dominant mid-pace that this band kind of keeps at fluidly. And it's really cool. It kind of works all the way around. I am hearing a little bit of early Morbid Angel, partly as a result of that, but also the vocal enunciation is kind of securing that impression as well. Hearing a little bit of David Vincent from time to time. But yeah, So some of the groove parts do remind me a little bit of some of the early 90s earache bands. Just the groove itself, I think the riffing sound in particular sounds a bit more modern though, but I still get reminded of the sort of the groove-laden stuff that happened with some of those early 90s earache bands. Also, I have to mention that pinch harmonics are kept to a minimum, which is really nice considering my utter hatred for those stupid guitar squeals that just are so overused on so many records over the years from metal bands. So nice. It's nice they keep it at a minimum. Can you tell I got an issue with that? I do. The vinyl variant for this one is Deep Blood Red, limited to 200 copies. This is the European variant, though damn if I don't see red in this at all. It looks brown. Also comes with an insert, pictures of the band, and lyrics. It also comes with the CD. There you go, in case you want to hear it digitally. Favorites, definitely the title track, Necrosapiens, my very favorite song on this album. Also Towers of Suffocation, Meat Hook Massacre, and Sea of Vomit. Nice titles. Speaking of Necrosapiens, there is a music video for that track, and you should definitely check that out at the Century Media YouTube channel. So now hearing this album, I strongly regret not picking it up last year when I should have. I know a lot of folks in the metal community on YouTube are praising the hell out of this record, and I just ignored it for the longest time. I don't even know why. It's really a great death metal record. I'm really excited about it. I definitely want to hear more from this band for sure. I think had I heard it last year, it probably would have made at least my honorable mentions for top metal albums of the year, maybe even in my top 10. I think it's really that good. So yeah, really excited about Baest. Next is a compilation album that's a bit of a novelty record. This is the world's shortest album, released in 2013 by Earache Records. So this was a release that came out Record Store Day UK 2013. I did Internet Archive to the 2013 RSD page to try to find more information on this record. There's none to be found. Amazing. One song of note on this is a song that is in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the shortest song ever. That would be You Suffer from Napalm Death at 1.9 seconds. Amazing. I should rattle off the tracks as well. Napalm Death also have Dead and Your Achievement on here. We have Wormrot with False Grind Sodomy and You Suffer, But Why Is It My Problem? Brutal Truth with Collateral Damage. AC with Howard Volkin's Bald. Lawnmower Death with Be Seen, Not Heard. Painkiller with Trail Marker. Brutal Truth with Blockhead. Morbid Angel with Bill Ursog number 2 Lava. Okay. AC with Wind Chimes Are Gay, which is both true and obvious, as well as Insect Warfare with Street Sweeper. You're probably wondering, this is a really short album. They put it on a 12-inch record? Well, they did not. They put it on a 5-inch record, and it's right here. Hilarious. I was also recently joking with another YouTuber about this release in that I was wondering if YouTube's Content ID system would actually have time to flag one of these tracks given how short they are. Still funny. The vinyl variant for this is red. It is also tiny, as I've mentioned before. What's really funny is there's actually text etched into the tiny little run-out grooves on this record. One side says 13 songs, 82.9 seconds, and the other side says Guinness World Record. Get it? Record? So out of 13 tracks on this album, I can pretty much say the whole album's my favorite. A lot of these songs sound very similar. They're all fast and blasty and short. So yeah, it's 83 seconds long. What do you want? So this is obviously a novelty release of sorts, but it does remind me of the old Record Store Day, way, way back when they actually put out unique records and special editions and all of that. But avoiding that potential rant, I still gotta say that I'm so glad I picked up this little record. Ha! Little. Get it? Huh? Yeah. Next up is a compilation album for American metal band Twisted Sister. This is Tear It Loose, Studio and Live Greatest Hits, released in 2022 by Friday Music. So I should say right away, the cover art is interesting because this image also appeared on their 1992 compilation, Big Hits and Nasty Cuts. I don't know why they're reusing it again. It seems kind of strange. Though I gotta say, if I compare that compilation to this one's way superior in the track listings in general, but you get a little bit more with this one, so hey, no complaints. One thing I like is the back cover here. There are write-ups here from all of the surviving Twisted Sister members. By the way, rest in peace, AJ Pero, as well as Malcolm Dome. He was a music journalist at the time, still around, talking about Twisted Sister's live performances in the UK, as well as the band's experiences and thoughts about that. Spoiler alert, they were pretty excited about playing the UK, especially talking about UK fans and how intense they were. Maybe coming out of the punk scene in the late 70s, early 80s, there was some of that energy still, and they discussed that a little bit. Pretty cool. Speaking of live performances, the second record in this double record set is all live material, recorded exclusively at UK venues. They played the Marquee, they played the Astoria, they played Hammersmith Odeon. Hammersmith is the only venue still left standing nowadays. I know it goes by a different name, but people still call it Hammersmith Odeon, which is pretty cool. It's what I know it as, even though I'm a Yank. I was surprised by a couple of the deep cuts on here. We're Gonna Make It and Sin After Sin, maybe even Ride to Live. Fantastic to hear live versions of those. As for the first record, it is comprised of studio tracks. It is a greatest hits of sorts. What's interesting, though, is that they are hits both in the US and the UK. I know You Can't Stop Rock and Roll was a single here, but The Kids Are Back and I Am On Me were more UK singles. So it's nice that they respect the US and the UK in this listing. Pretty cool. For the most part, I'm okay with the songs, except for one. Of course, that would be their abominable cover of Leader of the Pack. It's god-awful. It always has been. It's a cringy moment on Come Out and Play. And Come Out and Play has a few cringy moments, to be honest. They did pick The Fire Still Burns from that album, which is great. I love that song. But if I were to pick a second song from Come Out and Play, it wouldn't be Leader of the Pack. I know it's a single, but I still wouldn't pick it. Kill or Be Killed is a much better song from that album. I would have picked that instead. Killer Track, probably my favorite song on Come Out and Play. But otherwise, it's a good selection. You've got some good tracks here. And you got some predictable ones, too. We're Not Gonna Take It, I Want to Rock, all of that. So, yeah, there you go. Vinyl variant for this one is 2LP Gold. It also came in red. I really like the recreation of the Atlantic Records disc label from the 80s, the green, white, red. Pretty cool. Twisted Sister was on Atlantic Records back in the 1980s, so that's kind of neat. Also, we have a gatefold. Live pictures are more modern for them. The band doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. But these were probably performances from the 2010s. That would be my best guess here. AJ's still around, so there's that. Favorites, I'll start with the studio track sides. Definitely the songs from the first two albums. You've got Under the Blade, Shoot 'Em Down, The Kids Are Back, I Am On Me, and You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. As for the live sets, amazing stuff here. They open with What You Don't Know Sure Can Hurt You. That's from the Marquee show. I believe it was 1983. Great opening track. It's a real punch in the face. I love that song quite a bit. Also, Tear It Loose, Stay Hungry, Like a Knife in the Back, and SMF. Definitely killer live versions. You should hear them. So for me, this was definitely worth getting for the live tracks alone. I think the selection of those tracks plus performances are really, really good. The studio side is decent enough. I think some of the songs are predictable, but I think if you're just getting into Twisted Sister, I guess you're one of those three people who's never heard Twisted Sister before, you should check out this record. This is a really great introduction to this band for sure. I think you'd really benefit from hearing the live material as well, because they really shine in a live setting. Next up is the 15th studio album from Canadian progressive metal band Voivod. This is Synchro Anarchy, released in 2022 by Century Media Records. So I did want to talk about some of the folks who still hang the thrash metal label in this band. I don't know if that's entirely accurate anymore, and it's certainly not inclusive at all. Their 80s output was very thrashy, though there were also other elements creeping in as they went. This is a progressive metal band, but even that's not an accurate description of Voivod. In fact, if I were to try to describe this band to someone who's never heard them, it would be rather challenging. But we're going to try at least. So definitely digging the production on this record. I think everyone's where they need to be in the mix. It is labeled as being produced by Voivod, though I know some of the engineering and mixing and actual recording was done by Francis Perrin. Perrin's worked with Voivod before. He was also credited on the previous album, The Wake, another great Voivod album. What I really like is that Perrin really understands Voivod and their very peculiar and very unique sound. And I think it takes a very specific engineer to really know how to record a band like this. So I think he really pulls it off quite well. Again, Voivod definitely has their own very particular sound. They've had it throughout their career, but what you hear these days is more of a sort of post-Nothing Face, early 90s and on version of the band. As many know, founding guitar player Piggy died back in the 2000s. He was very instrumental, so to speak, in establishing a very strange and discordant guitar style. In 2008, they picked up Chewy. Great names, by the way. Chewy really does tribute Piggy's guitar style quite a bit, I think without ripping him off entirely. It does sound like a Voivod album, though, so his playing definitely fits in there. Vinyl variant for this one is Transparent Green, limited to 1,500 copies. I think it did come in other variants, but the green one was the one I wanted, so there it is. Also, we have an insert, full lyrics, and some of that amazing artwork from Voivod drummer Away. He's been doing the artwork for Voivod albums since the very beginning. Always killer to see that artwork. Speaking of which, there is also a poster here. Very cool. Love his art. It's just insane. Really enjoyed it over the decades. Do have some favorites, of course. Definitely Paranormalium, that's the opening track. I also dig Sleeves Off quite a bit. Also Quest for Nothing, as well as Memory Failure. I would say Quest for Nothing is my favorite song on this album currently. I would suggest checking that out. They do have music videos off this album, one for Paranormalium, one for Synchro Anarchy, one for Planet Eaters, and one for Sleeves Off. And you can find all of that at the Century Media YouTube channel. Of course, we still get the off-kilter riffs, we get the odd singing style of Snake, we get the sci-fi themes in the lyrics, we got moments of thrash here and there. Overall, I think this is a better album than The Wake. I love The Wake, but I think this album tops it on many levels. It matches it at the very least, but does top it in moments. I also kind of appreciated it more with repeated listenings. I got more out of it the more I heard it, the more I noticed about it. So yeah, bonus. And I'll be honest here, I really didn't check in with Voivod for a couple decades at least. I think following Nothing Face, I heard some stuff I didn't like and didn't connect with. But I'll tell you, these last two albums are just really incredible. Maybe they're a return to form for things I expected personally, but maybe they're just a better band too. I don't know. I think there are a lot of people who love the entire Voivod catalog, and good on ya. But this has made me rethink my position on Voivod as a band overall. And I think that's pretty healthy and pretty cool. So I'm probably going to check into some of those albums I ignored over the years and revisit them and see how I feel about them. At the very least, I still got this really cool album to hear. And the one before it, of course, too. So yeah, there it is. And that's it for another episode of Vinyl Haul. Definitely let me know in the comments what you think about these albums and these bands. I know some of these albums are pretty well liked. Maybe a couple are despised. I mean, I don't even know. Let me know that. Let me know about some new albums you got that you're pretty excited about. I'd love to hear about that. And of course, anything else that comes to mind, why not? Leave it in the comments. Of course, I'm always on the lookout for bands and albums I've either never heard or aren't really familiar with. Some of you are really helpful in that regard. You let me know about all sorts of stuff you're into, that like, hey Matt, if you like this band, you might like this band. Or if you like that album, check this record out too. So that's a thing you can put in the comments too. And god damn it, I'd love that. Of course, if you just stumbled upon this channel and you're like, hey, who is this guy in the Halloween t-shirt? I mean, it's not even October yet. What's up with that? My name is Matt. This is the Accusation Network, where each and every week I do metal vinyl collecting videos. I also do videos on classic and modern metal in general. If that tickles your fancy, you should definitely give this video a like. Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and share my videos with some friends. Of course, if you've been with me for a while and you've been wanting more content than you usually get here at the YouTube channel, you should definitely check out our Patreon page. That's at patreon.com/The Accusation Network. I have exclusive content there. I also show videos up to 7 days early. You should definitely check that out. check out all the reward tiers, and see how you can contribute. I think you'll like it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.